Morning, everybody. We might just give it a few seconds just to allow everybody to join. Okay, I think we're good. Good morning again, and welcome to the latest in our series of cybersecurity webinars here from Nostra. My name is Gary Byrne, and I am the Managed Services Director at Nostra. Again, thanks to everybody from joining us today, attendees from our previous webinars, and also people who may be joining us for the first time. As always, for anyone who couldn't make the previous webinars, they are available in Nostra's YouTube channel, and we will share links in a follow-up email after today's session. In every webinar, we discuss the importance of a multi-layered approach to cybersecurity. So in the last webinar, we looked at immutable backups, and they're critical in the battle against a successful cyber attack. I would say for anyone who didn't make that webinar, please do look at the YouTube channel. I do recommend looking at that recording. Every week we mention that we talk about policies and frameworks, and we explain that they're fundamental to good cybersecurity. But apart from being fundamental to good security, they're also, most importantly, a regulatory requirement for most businesses on this webinar. So over the next few weeks, we're going to really focus strongly on the areas of compliance and specifically frameworks. Today's session is going to discuss the importance of frameworks and the various frameworks that are there. As always, we say that these sessions are best when interactive. So please, any questions, please post them in the chat and we'll handle them for you. We will check in a couple of times during the session today just to see if anybody does have questions. And at the end of today's session, like all sessions, we will have the panel here specifically to deal with Q&A. As always, we will be recording these sessions and we will send on the recordings and slides to attendees afterwards. So with that, I'd like to welcome you all again, and I'd like to hand over to Reg Stallard. Reg is a leading cyber ICT risk and compliance consultant at Nostra, and he's going to take us through today's webinar.
Thanks, Gary. Thanks for the introduction. Welcome, everyone. So today we'd like to bring you through an introduction to information security frameworks. I think from our own perspective, we use these as almost like communication tools and ways to consult and review environments and infrastructure with clients. And sometimes that comes from a disjointed perspective when we're trying to get clients to align to certain frameworks and get them to improve their security posture. So information security frameworks are industry recognized standards. They're not things that Nostra has come up with or individual consultants, that type of thing. So they're ideal to assess your security posture against. So we'd like to bring you through some of the most popular frameworks, some of the most common frameworks in the industry. We're going to try and demonstrate how they can improve your security and how they can manage incidents within your own environments. So you're all very welcome. Today, myself, Gary, and Jason are available for a panel discussion. Gary, our CTO, and Jason, our head of compliance. As Gary mentioned there, it'd be great if it could be interactive. We're happy to take some questions as we go through the presentation. Sometimes it's better to get them in the context that you might come up with. So if you have any questions, queries, pop them in the chat and we'll try and take them during the session as opposed to just having questions at the end. Okay, so what is information security? I'm just going to try and frame the conversation a little bit today. So information security is what keeps our valuable information protected and secure. It's not something that you buy, it's something that you do. So we can't throw budgets at this. It's not something we can just go to a vendor or a supplier and buy information security. There's no silver bullet that will protect our environments or our infrastructure. There's lots of different threats, particularly in the different environments and industries that we're all working in. So it's a process, not a product. So we need a collective effort from the business, not just IT, to enhance our information security. So it's achieved using a combination of suitable strategies and approaches. Determine the risks to information and treat them accordingly. So we need to understand what assets we have, what are critical to our business, what provides value to our business, what we use to deliver services to our clients. The cornerstone of any information security program is the CIA, the information security triad. So that's the confidentiality of information, the integrity of information, and availability of information. So we're trying to protect all of those with any type of security or framework that our controls are put in place. So we want to avoid, prevent, and detect and recover from incidents. So the information security and implementing proper controls, procedures, processes, and governance around our environments help to enhance that. So we want to secure our people, our processes, and technology, not just IT. So information security, unfortunately, sometimes falls within the remit of the IT department, but it's a business challenge and it's a business issue and it's a business risk. And again, from a Nostra perspective, quite often we're dealing with CFOs, CEOs, COOs. We are the IT function for our clients, and we're not dealing with IT people. It's more often like I said, a C-suite level or a senior management team. So as I mentioned there, I just want to run into this a little bit more detail. So information security is defined as preservation of confidentiality, making sure our information is accessible only to those authorized to use it. So if I work on a security team, I don't need access to a HR folder or to the finance folder or the marketing folder. So we want to restrict access to that information, that data, and also to external users or people that are not authorized to use it. Integrity of information, so safeguard the accuracy and the completeness of information and our processing methods. So we want to make sure when we do access information that it's accurate, it's up to date, hasn't been modified, hasn't been corrupted either maliciously or unintentionally. That's where our backups and our replication and our redundancy comes into place there. And then the availability of information. So ensuring that the information we have is available when required. So if I need to work on a file or a service, that file or service is available when I need to use it, be it any time of the day, particularly in business continuity scenarios or in disaster recovery scenarios. That we have proper procedures, processes, and recovery plans in place to ensure that information is available for us. So the information security elements, as mentioned there earlier, it's a combination of our people, process, and technologies. So on the people side, we want to make sure that our staff are trained and they're aware, and they're our biggest, one of our biggest threats in our organisation. We're also one of our allies, so they can identify threats where some of our tools or our technical controls may not see them. We want to make them aware of the skills they need and the cyber hygiene, so good practices, clear desk, password management, logging out of our systems where they're not in use, no password sharing, those type of controls. Then on the process side, we want to make sure our management systems are record up to date. We've got robust policies and procedures integrated into our day-to-day operations. Internal audits, so are we doing what we're saying we're doing? Are our controls effective? Are our controls working? If not, can we modify them? Can we change them? Our operational environments may have changed, so we need to modify our policies or our processes to match with that. And then our governance frameworks. Are we aligning to a framework? Is it working? Is it effective? Is it providing value to the business? And then on the technical side, we have some examples there: our endpoint protection, our firewall and our edge protection services, our SIEM, our SOC, our security monitoring tools, and then some basic cyber hygiene. Are we patching our systems and our infrastructure at the right times? Are we monitoring those environments? Are we doing vulnerability scanning and assessments? Are we doing pen tests, both internal and external? Are we assessing that environment and our assets to make sure that they're protected and there's no gaps there in our infrastructure? So one of the recommendations we would have is to align to a framework. There's lots of regulations coming down the road, particularly with DORA and NIS2, but we're used to dealing with regulations. So most organizations will have to comply with GDPR, Data Protection Act, Companies Act, Finance Act, and as I mentioned there, NIS2 and DORA. The IA Act is in place now in different variations. Will become effective by 2026. Some are in place since February 2025. So we would recommend, or we ourselves align to framework. So there's an example of some frameworks there. The ISO suite 27000 information security, this cybersecurity framework, CIS, COBIT, PCI DSS, and others. So we'll jump into these in a little bit more detail there. So the NIST cybersecurity framework provides guidance to industry, government agencies, and other organizations to manage cybersecurity risks. And it can be used by organizations to understand, prioritize, and communicate their cybersecurity efforts. The ISO 2007-1 suite, internationally recognized standard, as I mentioned, it's something that we ourselves have achieved. Provides systematic approach to managing sensitive company information, guides the implementation of information security controls, and helps organizations protect their data. CIS controls is a Centre for Internet Security. It's a priority set of cybersecurity best practice developed, as I mentioned there, by the Centre of Internet Security. There's some baseline hardened images available in some of our cloud providers that are all aligned to the CIS control suite. So they're useful for us when we're looking at hardening our baselines or standard images on some of our infrastructure. SOC 2, that's a security compliance standard focused on service providers, especially in the cloud. It assesses how organizations manage data, protects privacy and client information, and it's evaluated by the independent third-party audits. PCI DSS, that's the payment card industry data security standard, globally adopted framework that provides requirements for protecting cardholder data and maintaining secure payment systems, helping reduce credit card fraud. Don't see that much in our client suite, as most of our clients would probably outsource that to a third party to manage those cards on their behalf. COBIT is a governance framework that supports enterprise IT management and decision making, helps organizations align IT goals with business objectives, focus on control, risk, and performance. Then there's the Cloud Control Matrix. It's developed by the Cloud Security Alliance. Our framework provides a structured set of security controls for cloud computing environments, including areas like access control, encryption, and audit logging. And then we have Cyber Essentials. So that's a UK government-backed scheme that defines basic security measures every business should adopt. Focuses on 5 key areas: firewalls, secure configurations, access control, malware protection, and software updates. So that standard there, we've seen quite a few of our clients trying to align to that, as it was a good baseline framework to align to. So there were just some of the frameworks that are available out there, and these frameworks have mappings across each individual ones there. So I've taken out one control or one area there on the NIST framework, and it's asset management. As you can see there, there's lots of different controls within asset management, but you can see on the right hand side there on the information reference that they map to the other control framework. So you can see the CIS ones in there, COBIT, ISO 27001, and then the NIST special publication.
Reg, I might just just ask you a question in there, just in relation to kind of the information security piece. So from your experience, what's the most common misconception that business leaders have about information security in general?
Probably that it's a call center. So you know, it takes time, it takes resources, it takes investment, but I think sometimes organizations don't see the value that it can add. We're seeing lots of changes and trends, especially in the turn of the year, with, I think globally there's a push for operational resilience and information security, particularly with the AI systems starting to become involved in and lots of organizations adopting it as a strategic enabler as well. So there's lots of challenges around that. So information security, you know, is a requirement, but it's not a cost center. It can enable us to perform. It can enable us to achieve our organization goals as well in a more secure way.
And do you see more companies taking on board the Cyber Essentials, which, as you mentioned, is a UK standard, but I mean a perfect kind of, you know, platform for kind of thinking the right way and kind of asking the right questions? Do you see more and more people doing that?
We see quite a few, but it's probably at the lower level. So the framework that we'd like to focus on, and probably the one for the core conversation today, is probably the NIST cybersecurity framework. So that's on its second iteration. It was renewed there in February 2024. So that's what a lot of the industry regulations are based on. So DORA is almost based on the NIST framework verbatim. And if you fall under NIS2 under the critical infrastructure provider, the National Cybersecurity Centre will provide you with a self-assessment based on NIST 2.0. So really, that's probably the one what we were focused on. I'll run through it later on in the presentation where we see the value of it, because it takes a lot of the technical speak out of it, particularly for people that don't have an IT background. It's language like identify our assets, protect our assets, detect issues, respond to issues. So it's a good communication tool for the likes of ourselves, and it's a good collaboration communication tool for organizations to work across their various business units, if that makes sense.
It does. Thanks, Reg. And Gustavo, thanks a million for that question. Back over to you, Reg.
Thanks, Gary. So that dovetails quite nicely into our next slide there. So the one that we focus on, or that we like to work with clients on, is the NIST cybersecurity framework. So as I mentioned there, it's on its second iteration. It's over 10 years old. It was introduced in 2014, and it's organized into 6 core functions. You can see there's a governance layer, which is actually the only one that was changed. So the identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover functions were already part of the NIST 1.0. The governance layer was added in there. It is a change in global strategies that there does need to be governance on IT and IT security. And we are doing what we're committing to do, and we are saying we are doing what we're saying we're doing, and there are checks, and we have we're reviewing the controls we have in place and our environments. So that's what we want to focus on a little bit today, because, like I said, it's a really good tool for us, and it's a really good way of communicating to our clients. So when we're trying to engage our clients and have them increase their posture or harden their security, we can align to these, and sometimes these updates or improvements are done kind of out of isolation. So we want a client to maybe bring in a new backup system, or we want them to harden their firewalls. And sometimes there's the perception that we're looking at a sales function, or we're looking at the commercial side of it. But really, we're trying to align them to a framework, and we've assessed them, and we're trying to make improvements to them. And these industry standards are not ones that Nostra came up with, or not ones that individual companies came up with. They're a collective of technical advisements from across the globe and industry professionals. So the National Institute of Standards in the States, they collate all of these controls. It's a US-based organization, but there's input from countries all over the world. And I actually met one of the guys at a conference in Dublin this year, and a disproportionate amount of input from Irish MSPs, CTOs, information security professionals. So it's a good collection of standards and controls. So as I mentioned there, it's broken into 6 functions. And they're sort of broken out into various categories. We're not going to go through them all today, but as you can see there, it's designed to help organizations of all sizes and sectors, including industry, government, academia, and non-profit, to manage and reduce their cybersecurity risks. It's used regardless of the maturity level and the technical sophistication of the organization's programs. It doesn't embrace a one-size-fits-all, so this would work against multiple sizes of organizations, operating in different environments, operating globally, under different regulations, different requirements. So what it is it's something that can be aligned or fit to your own business and your own organization. So I suppose we're trying to focus on how they can work for you, and why you should consider reviewing your posture against one of these information security frameworks. What we're always trying to consider is our CIA triad, or information security triad, the confidentiality, the information, and the integrity and the availability principles. And here's where we're trying to add some context into the conversation. So hopefully most of you have never seen this. This is a ransomware note. And this is a ransomware note from one of our clients that has happened in the last 12 to 18 months. I suppose over the last probably previous 10 years, we've probably seen ransomware in our customer base maybe 3 times over that period. Two of those occasions, they were not Nostra customers at the time, but they became Nostra clients. They were referred to us. So we didn't see ransomware in our customer base or in our clients much. But in the last 12 to 18 months, we've seen it probably 5 to 6 times. And look, we're not trying to scare anyone, but we're not trying to, push concerns to people, but we are trying to just make you aware of what's out there. Sometimes we see lots of these presentations or conferences or alerting or training, and that cybersecurity incident costs 20 million, 30 million, but we really don't bring it home. We think this happens to large global companies because they're the ones that make the news. But it is something that happens in all countries, not all various sectors. And some organizations think I'm not a target. They don't know where we are. We're too small. We're not public. But it's out there, and it is a threat. So, like I said, this ransom. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, I think that's correct, and Gary Melvin's on here every week, and we talk about the fundamentals and doing the fundamentals. AI is causing a lot more of these ransomware attacks. Unsettlement in various areas around the globe also adds to that as well. So there's a number of reasons as to why we're seeing an increase of these things, but it is important calling out that it isn't something overseas. These are real. These are happening right here, and that's what we're trying to protect against.
Yeah, and look, I think the HSE breach a number of years back kind of brought the conversation forward a little bit in Ireland, because we didn't think it happened here. They're not considered. We're a small country. We're not. But look, we've got some large companies here. We've and some of our clients have global footprints. So it is out there. And look, the threats are becoming more sophisticated. They're more automated. And we are working and operating differently. COVID brought different working practices. So traditionally we probably had what's called the castle and moat information security, where we protect our environment, but once someone was in our environment, they were fine, they were safe. But that's not the case anymore, because I'd be surprised if there isn't an organization on here that doesn't allow remote access of their users to work from home. And that's the way. And that changed literally within 2 weeks, and it's proven very difficult to pull that back, and we probably will never pull it back. But that's our environment has changed, and our information security needs to change and adapt to that as well.
One of the things that I always talk to customers around is the immutable backups, and this is the reason why. So one of the things we lead with, and actually the NIST cybersecurity framework is a very structured way to start at the beginning and work all your way around. But ransomware with AI assisted technologies is probably a much bigger threat now than it ever has been. And I work with the cybercrime unit a little bit in Ireland as well, and they're seeing an awful lot more of it. So it's making sure we have the basic protections in place while working through the framework as well. So it will take any organization time to work through the complete framework, but making sure that we have the fundamentals, which are what we refer to, and that includes having an immutable backup for all your data in place, will protect you, and you'll have the ability to recover. For those that don't have that in place, there is no option but to actually look at paying a ransom, which we'd never want anybody to do. But that is, where immutable backup is not in place, that is sometimes the only option. And we've had customers or potential customers reach out to us, and when we start talking about the backups, the backups are what's targeted first. And any ransomware threat actor will target the backups in order to try and delete them so they can't be recovered. So unfortunately, this is accelerating. It is there to stay. So we have to make sure we have the protections in place to combat it and stop it in the first place.
Thanks, Gary. So the minor attack framework. So don't worry, I'm not going to go through this in any detail. I just wanted to introduce it because it's the background for some of the next slides and the things we want to run you through. So the minor attack framework, that's a globally accessible knowledge base. It helps us detail adversarial tactics, techniques, and procedures that some of the threat actors use. And and it helps us understand and organize, counter some of the cyber threats out there, but it provides a way of us modeling adversarial behavior, and sometimes we can identify some of the security gaps and develop better technology and detection and response strategies in there. I'm just going to run from left to right at the very top line there. So reconnaissance techniques, so initial access, how threat actors get into our environments, and then the persistence phase. So we probably all read or all seen that sometimes threat actors are in our environments from 200 to 250 days, monitoring, looking at behavior, looking at collecting data, planning attacks, and then the privilege escalation. So we may have only they may have only harvested low level credentials, and they're looking to escalate their privileges or gain admin or root level control over an environment. Defense evasion, so they're monitoring our security techniques and the security practices put in place while they're planning their attacks. Lateral movement within the environment. So again, moving around, they may have compromised a device on a particular network, but they're trying to move across the network and gain access to other data, other infrastructure, other assets. Then command and control. So you know, we're encoding data. We're looking at tool transfers into the environments in order to exfiltrate data, and then there is that exfiltration of data outside the environment, and then the impacts we have for those. So the reason why we wanted to just give a quick background on that was because we're going to try and look at a ransomware kill chain, and we're going to try and map that back to the NIST cybersecurity framework. I'll just give you a demonstration of where that framework can play a part in protecting or recovering or detecting these incidents. So the ransomware kill chain, it's a concept used to describe the step-by-step process that cyber criminals follow when executing a ransomware attack. It helps us understand how these attacks unfold and identify key points where we can detect, prevent, and respond to our threats. Inspired by the broader cyber kill chain, tailored specifically for ransomware. So this is a simplified ransomware kill chain that we've pulled together relative to some of the ransomware that we've seen in our client base in the last 12 to 18 months. And we're trying to keep it basic and simple. So I'm sure you would agree, it's not like the initial minor attack framework there, but we've broken it into 3 distinct phases here. So the initial access and entry points into the network, lateral movement, preparation and elevation of privileges, and then the execution of the ransomware and the impact. So in some of the instances that happen in our own customer base, and I think we're okay discussing, because we're not going to pretend that everything we put in place and Nostra environment, Nostra customers are hardened and secured. With different levels of protection with different clients. And it's all based on what they want to engage with us for, or based on the controls and the resources and the budgets that they have in place. So to give you an example, or some examples, one of our clients missed almost 10 days of production in a manufacturing environment that was manufacturing around the clock. Another client we struggled for probably 6 to 8 weeks recovering data, business data. I wouldn't say business critical data, but data that was important to the organization. One organization that was completely down on a Friday morning, and fully operational back to production on the Monday, based on some of the stuff we had put in place with them. And then we had another client that had an entry into their environment, and multiple attempts to detonate malware, processes, other infiltration, privilege escalation, all thwarted and all caught by some of the tools, some of the products and services, the same SOC and our EDR tools that we had in place. So there's lots of things we can do to prevent and control some of these attacks.
And so, I think just to add on to that, Reg, and sorry, I think one of the reasons that we run these webinars is exactly for that reason. You know, we've got the customers who listen to all our advice. We've got customers that sometimes don't, but we want them to. And one of the things that we're trying to get across in these webinars is the importance of kind of standardization of cybersecurity and your cybersecurity posture. There's no better way of doing that than aligning to a framework. You know what I mean? Whether it's ISO, whether it's DORA, whether it's NIST, whatever it is, you know, Nostra's weapon of choice is the NIST framework because it's easy to interpret, and it's also a very close cousin of DORA. So it is important from a Nostra position that we use these to educate our customers about those very things, you know.
Yeah, and look, we're front and center about what we're doing, what we're trying to achieve with lots of these deals. Look, I don't need house insurance on my house till the day before my house goes on fire, but I don't know when that's going to be. So I have house insurance now. So, and look, not to frighten anyone or scare anyone. We're here to heighten awareness here and just make people aware of what's out there and what's happening and what we can do to protect them as well. You know, we're not looking for them to put in a full system, a full information security program. There is, we can highlight particular areas in clients' environments, particularly based on their operational environment, what we think they should be doing. There's quick wins, there's more critical things to protect than a full suite of information security controls and protections. But we'd love to work and engage on clients and just make them aware of what we can and do. And some of the reasons why we do things. You know, 3 to 5 years ago, we were trying to put MFA in place for lots of our clients, and we had some objections to that. You know, if someone came to me today, I'd actually tell them that they're negligent, you know, as opposed to trying to work them. That's how things have moved so fast, you know.
And can I just ask, Reg, there, you mentioned about the ransomware kill chain, and you gave examples of, you know, people were down for 10 days and then some people were kind of, you know, over a weekend. So we've a question there in, you know, at what stage of the kill chain is the best point to detect and to stop a ransomware attack?
Well, look, they're all different, and it depends on where the entry point is. Look, phishing is the most common attack point. You know, if we could protect phishing or protect our environments against phishing, business email compromise, we would have a much better place. We can put lots of. You actually raised a question at a good time here. So here's some of the security controls we can put in place here, just on the initial access side. So MFA I just mentioned there is particularly good because we're not letting someone into our environment without a second authorization method. On the training side, so we want to train users to be aware of some of the attacks or some of the even social engineering techniques that they might be they might come across. We ourselves do security and pen testing, and we do social engineering. So sometimes when we're doing some testing, we'll call our client and we'll try and persuade them to give us access into their network. And unfortunately, some of them do. We pretend to be from different providers, different services, and we try and identify some users where we think will give us access to their environment. And look, we train users on the back of that then. So on the asset management side, then we want to identify our assets and put controls against those. So there's not one control against any particular area. So we're looking to have overlapping controls, because some controls can fail, some controls can be, you know, worked around. But there's lots of different things we can do to assess our environment and protect from initial access. But it needs investment, it needs resourcing, and it needs conversations, probably particularly at the C-suite level or through the board, for them to understand the risks that our environments have.
Just a quick discussion on MFA for a second, right? And I know we need MFA on pretty much everything, whether it's VPN access or whether it's cloud services, but it's a very basic thing that needs to go across pretty much everything that we do. But we also feel that MFA is probably no longer enough. So MFA on its own these days is no longer enough. So there is the newer phishing attacks, and this, I think 90 odd percent, depending on where you look at, between 90 and 95% of attacks start off an email. So we're working on putting in increased protection around email for our customers. But one of the things on MFA is that MFA on its own is no longer enough, and that's the move towards the zero trust piece that you have down there as well. But I just wanted to make sure that everybody, things have moved on quite a bit, even in the last year, I suspect.
Yeah, so that's a good point, Gary. On the MFA side, so we can bypass MFA with what's called man in the middle attacks or evil proxy, and we ourselves in Nostra, we bypassed MFA on security testing. So we've harvested session keys and session tokens to bypass customers' MFA. And kind of that's where our Cloud Shield service come into place, because you do put in lots of the controls that you mentioned there, the zero trust, as in we're not trusting a user's authentication. We're verifying the device, we're verifying the user, we're verifying the location, we're verifying the type of data they're looking for, or what they're accessing. So we're hardening MFA, or we're hardening those control sets about getting on into our environments. And look, we're transitioning lots of services from on-prem into the cloud, and with that comes its own challenges as well. So just to run through some of the last few controls we can put in place there. So whitelisting and blacklisting, so we can restrict access to particular IP addresses or particular protocols or particular applications. We've got CM/SOC services there, so that's security incident and event management services and security operations center. Nostra ourselves offer that service, so we have a team that monitors and manages some of our clients' security environments. So we're collating logs, we're collecting those, they're being pulled together in the central repository, and individual log entries on their own may not be an issue, but collectively lots of different entries or events on our system may need further investigation and review. Endpoint detection, so we want all our endpoints to be protected from antivirus, ransomware. We've got lots of different tools and techniques for managing those. Ideally, we want to bring that into a central dashboard where we're managing them collectively and seeing any other issues across the network. And then passwords is key. So we want to go hard and password, and password managers help us with bad password practices, where we're not writing passwords down on post-it notes or sharing passwords, that type of thing.
And just to jump in there, Reg, for anybody who wasn't on any of the previous webinars, we did have one specifically on training. We did have one specifically on CM/SOC, and a lot of the topics that Reg mentioned there. So for anybody, again, I'll just reiterate, Nostra YouTube channel, all the previous webinars are there, and just go back and view in your own time.
Thanks, Harry. So next phase, so the lateral movement within the environment, some of the controls we can put in place, as I just mentioned, there are CM/SOC services, so that would monitor for anomalies, and there's some AI tools built into those, so they're looking for unusual behavior, unusual access, volume of access, that type of stuff. So then we've our various EDR, XDR, and SOAR tools, so they're our endpoint protection and our automation. So if we do have an event on an endpoint, you know, are we waiting for an alert? Are we waiting for someone to get eyes on that to review it? We can build in some automations and almost playbooks into our security tools, so that if there is an event on an endpoint or a device, that there is some additional things that are added. So the device might be disabled, it might be isolated to a different LAN, it might push out some scanning, might disable accounts, might disable servers that are on that device as well. VLAN and network segmentation is a big thing, so we can segregate our network. So if a particular network or device is compromised on the network, it is isolated, or reducing the potential impact of that and making it more difficult to move laterally across the network. The principle of least privilege then is that we'd like to align or push organizations find down the idea of role-based access. So we're not just giving people access to services and products and tools and applications that they don't need. That it's relative to their job function, and we can add in security groups and various things like that to help manage that. And then script disabling. So we can isolate or we can use only particular device to run scripts, because a lot of these attacks are automated, or they're pushing across the network by running scripts or collecting information or disabling the process. And if we can manage that on an environment and just have scripts running maybe on one device, an IT management device, or what we call as a jump box, that could help mitigate from that. And then execution and target impact. So here's our various controls around here. So technical controls and firewall rails, so we can restrict data from being exfiltrated from the network, monitor the network with our CM/SOC services, data isolation, so we can isolate our data, particularly our backups. And as Gary mentioned there, backup immutability is key. So we don't want those backups to be modified or changed or deleted. And that's a key part of ransomware attacks, that the threat actors will actually hunt out our backups and delete them. And they're holding a stronger card down when they're trying to get us to pay a ransomware. And we always like to have an offline repository of our data. And we'd recommend having a cloud-based backup as well as an on-prem. And then data encryption. So we do have data exfiltrating from our environment or our network that it's encrypted, and it can't be used, or it can't be leaked on some of the dark web or information sharing services. And then we have our incident response, our business continuity plan, and our disaster recovery plans. So that's just a really high level review of like the ransomware kill chain, some of the various stages of that, and some of the controls that we can and probably should put in place to help reduce the impact if we do unfortunately come across this. So I just want to run through real quick the same ransomware kill chain, try and map it to the NIST framework, just to kind of demonstrate the use and the application of what these frameworks do. So on the governance layer, so we would have policies, processes, and mandates to, what we can or can't do, or what we should and shouldn't do. So should we have internet exposed services? If we do, are they locked down? Are they based on security baselines? Are they controlled? Are they on segregated VLANs or on DMZs? Are we doing vulnerability scanning? Are we doing testing of our environment? And if we are, what are we doing with those vulnerability scans? Do we have a process or a policy to patch or remove those vulnerabilities within a particular period, particularly if it's related to critical infrastructure? And then password policies, password is key, and access into our environment is key. So again, are we governing those? And look, the governance layer sits across lots of different areas. Are we doing what we're saying we're doing? Are the controls we have in place working? Are they effective? Are we reviewing those? Is someone accountable or responsible to make sure that those are effective and working for the business? If I move into the identifier layer, and you can see there, are we identifying some of these fish? Do we have phishing controls in place? Are we using spam filters? Are we helping our users? So are we indicating with various hints and prompts to our users where they might be prompted for messages from external users or users that they don't normally communicate or interact with? And again, are we identifying our vulnerabilities? Are we looking at our assets in terms of, particularly internet exposed services that gives a threat actor a foothold into the network or somewhere that they can scan or try and get a vulnerability. On the protect side, again, you can see we haven't really turned phishing off. Phishing is a big thing. It's as Gary mentions, over 90% of security incidents come through business email compromise, and I suppose it's the one route into all of our organizations through our users is phishing. There's over 13 billion emails sent a day, and over 50% of those are either spam or malicious. So you can see the volume of those, and you can see why it's a constant threat. Password guessing, so we've got password spray attacks, particularly on our cloud environments, and we can put controls in against them. So if a password is attempted incorrectly 4 or 5 times, the account is locked, or we restrict access from that particular IP address or that service. Email, what have we got in place around our email, our EDR tools, and our spam filters, our conditional access? Are we restricting malicious attachments and malware from running in our networks? Excuse me. On the tech phase again, I still haven't turned off phishing. Are we detecting these attacks? So are we reviewing these? Are they coming in? Are we blocking these? Are we monitoring these lists? Is there particular accounts that are being targeted? Then we detect the malware in our environments. Have we got our same SOC services? Are they restricting access to application service that might be installed by users as well? And then on the lateral movement side, are we detecting that lateral movement? So is someone moving within our environment? Is our same socket in there and picking up on those? Escalation privileges there on acquiring full access. So some of our same SOC services, we've configured controls there that if privileged groups or administrator groups, if someone's onto that, we'll be alerted to that, and we'll be contacting the client straight away to make sure that privilege escalation is actual, and it's not something that's been done that shouldn't be. And then are detecting business data exfiltrated from the network. So if ransomware has detonated or any other security incident or data breach occurred, do we know that this data is leaving the network? And we can put controls in place that restrict business data exfiltrating the network only to known services or known IP addresses or known infrastructure. And then responding to threats. So how we responded to malware, how we responded to that lateral movement and control of those accounts. So again, some of our tools and our applications can restrict those, can lock them down, can isolate them. We can close off exfiltration of business data until it's confirmed or confirmed that it's legitimate. And then in the recovery phase, we've got our disaster recovery plans, our incident response plans, our backup and recovery, and then we should have incident response plans to deal with any ransomware incident or extortion ban. Unfortunately, what's happening, what's quite common now is the double extortion. So our data might be exfiltrated and held to ransom. It's encrypted, with the threat that if it's not, if payment is made for the ransom, that they release that data on public sites or confidential, private, sensitive data. So that's just to bring it maybe back together on one place. So these are the 6 different functions, and look, some of the various controls that we can put in place. I won't run through them all. I might just give some examples of some of them. So on the governance side, particularly, I suppose, particularly for clients that don't have a defined IT role or an IT function, define the roles and responsibilities. Who's the owner of information security, or who's accountable for that. And if possible, aligned to a framework, we'd be delighted and happy to help or consult on that side of it. And again, the policy development side. So the policy defines what the business sanctions or wants in their environment. Gap analysis helps understand where an organization is in its cyber resilience or its cyber posture. On the identify side, for me, it always starts with asset management. If I don't know what assets I have, I can't protect them, I can't risk assess them, and we can't put business continuity plans or disaster recovery plans around if I don't understand or know what assets I have in my network. Vulnerability assessments, again, is key as well. I'm putting in a program that works, and that we have follow-up and remediations around those. On the protect side, firewall and edge services. So we're probably at the start of seeing the move to different type of edge protection services. As I mentioned earlier, we're migrating lots of environments to the cloud. A traditional firewall model probably doesn't lend itself to that anymore. So we're looking probably at cloud access security brokers and secure access service edges, which are almost like virtual firewalls. So we won't have users VPN into environments to get access to services. And then data encryption. If we can encrypt our data at rest and in transit, it helps add another control in case of an interface security incident. Gary mentioned there security awareness training for staff. I think that's key. And it's a service that we provide. We've put lots of time and effort into building out our security platforms, our security training, and we actually have aligned it to a different NIST standard in terms of training. So like I said, we've put a lot of time and effort into that. On the tech side, our same SOC services, training for our users and our staff, and then our threat intelligence. So lots of our products and services have that threat intelligence feeds built into them. We ourselves, as a managed service provider, we utilize lots of our partners on the threat intelligence side. We're members of lots of different groups and forums, and we're always keen to understand what's out there and what threats have for ourselves as a critical provider to lots of clients, but also to our customers. On the response side, so our incident response plans, we'd like to come up with incident playbooks that, you know, the most common incidents that may occur. And look, an information security incident isn't always malicious. It can be accidental or the cause of hardware failure, that type of stuff, but isn't an information security incident if our information becomes available. And then incident reporting if it has to be reported to a regulator. And then the recovery phase or the recovery side should have our disaster recovery plans, our business continuity plans, have good tested backup and restore services, and we'd always like to have a debrief for lessons learned on an incident and post-incident reviews. So for lots of these different areas, we have our own Cloud Shield service, our own Cloud Shield product. Maybe some of the guys will talk a little bit around that on the next section, but we've bundled lots of products and suites and services into what we call a Cloud Shield product to help harden lots of the different areas that we see some of the most common threats and to put in some resilience as well. So just to summarize, just some of the frameworks there, we did focus on in this cybersecurity framework, and that's one that was probably our preference for our client base. As I mentioned there, we are Nostra ourselves 27001 to 2022 version certified. We have external orders come in and verify that. And the Centre for Internet Security is a common one as well, particularly on the cloud marketplaces where we're looking to acquire hardened images or hardened services on some of our servers or our applications. So what we would suggest is explore what information security frameworks might suit your organization's needs. We're happy to review or consult or advise. Understand how they can strengthen your cyber resilience, guide your risk management, ensure regulatory compliance. Part of an assessment on the cyber security framework is a maturity assessment or a tiered assessment. So there's different levels of your competency or maturity in some of your controls and your process, and we can help and guide on that. And these usually aren't a quick fix, but be a good idea to get an understanding of where you are, particularly in some of the more important or key areas. And then utilize the frameworks to support communication and collaboration. I mentioned earlier, it's a really good tool for us, particularly with some of our clients, to work together to give them a posture or to give them an idea of where we believe they are against an industry regulated framework. It's not something that Nostra recommends or a particular consultant or professional services guys recommend. They're industry-based standards that are used all over globally with multiple different size of organizations. So that's all I have for me. You'll be glad to hear that I've run out. I don't know if you've met any questions there. If you want to open up to a discussion there, or
Yeah, no, absolutely, Reg. First of all, thanks so much for that. We do have a couple of questions in. So one there, and actually I might phrase it a little differently. And have you seen tangible improvements in its security posture as a result of adopting a particular framework? So I guess what I want to ask on that is that, you know, we've Gary Melvin, we've got yourself, we've Jason Burns here, Senan Finucane's there. You know, you're dealing with cyber incidents here all the time. How are they different to somebody who's implemented the framework versus somebody who can't, who hasn't? You know, what are the tangible improvements that you've seen and how are they measured?
I take that one to start. So yeah, definitely Reg covered a huge amount of content, which is brilliant and took us through it. The way we look at the framework, it's like a jigsaw. So it gives you the full picture over time, and then you know what bits you need to work on next. So it gives everybody a plan. So if you're working towards a framework, I think it puts structure on your information security processes, your pretty much everything. And for that reason, then Gary, if you follow the framework, you automatically have incident response plans. You have your backup. You have it tested. You're doing vulnerability scanning. You're doing in the different sections of the framework have actually pieces to help you through that question. So as you work through it, you're getting better all the time. But if you have the framework in place, you know exactly what to do when there is an incident through your incident response, your plan and your procedures, and you will have done your disaster recovery testing as well. So it's multiple, every section of the framework actually takes you closer to actually having better pieces of the puzzle in place for that particular question.
And thanks, Gar. And then the next question then probably follows on from that. So the onboarding of the framework, for example, so for Nostra customers, question is how does the NIST Cybersecurity Framework 2.0 help identify a company's most critical cybersecurity risks? So Reg went through the various components there of it. I guess what I'd ask is that how do we start that process with a customer? Is it a gap analysis? Is it an audit? What does that look like so we can start to identify where the gaps are?
Yeah,
sorry,
sorry,
yeah,
Jason,
Rich, you go ahead.
no, go on. Yeah.
Well, what I was going to say is the regulatory authorities are usually very helpful, or the supervisory authorities are very helpful. And the National Cybersecurity Centre has a self-assessment tool, which is something that I've used with some of the operators of essential services under the original framework. And it takes you through getting to the point of, right, I know where I am in the system. And with a lot of the regulations and frameworks, all they're really helping you do is putting you in a good place relative to each of the areas of protection. Some people will be familiar with the Swiss cheese model, which is the last thing you want to do is you want to get all the holes in the cheese lining up and something getting all the way through. So each of these layers, each of these areas, each of these pillars, depending on which framework or article or act that you're talking about, will be looking to put in a block somewhere along there. Maybe they might get past the first section, but they won't get past the next section. And then as they evolve, they will add in further items, and it will often be appropriate. So whatever is appropriate to the small to medium enterprise may not be appropriate to the enterprise. So as you grow, as you move up along, your posture will then change relative to that.
And that's actually perfect. Thank you, Jason, for the next question. So next question is about the NIST cybersecurity framework evolving. There's changes there, regulatory shifts like the Digital Operation Resilience Act, increased global scrutiny on operation resilience. So I guess question is, like Nostra, I mentioned earlier, chooses the NIST framework. It's easy to interpret, it's easy to understand, and it's a very close cousin of DORA. So, is it good for Nostra customers to take on the NIST framework and then it will align to DORA, or what should we be doing there?
Yeah. Very simply, if you look at the two big frameworks in the current year, shall we say, are DORA and will be the NIS2 framework, not to be confused with NIST. So NIS2 is a regulation, whereas NIST is a framework that you can actually use to get to where you want to go. Now, each of these frameworks, controls, whatever phrase you want to put onto it, will say, are you aware of the appropriate regulations and so on? So it calls out that you must do this. It also calls out that you must do regular reviews or audits, depending on the framework or the regulation. So what it's doing is it's putting in all the building blocks to make sure, at a very simple level, every year you check, am I still good enough at what I'm doing here, or do I need to raise my bar? Is there a new regulation that, in order to protect myself, my customers, and the people who work here with me, and all the data involved, do I need to make a change? So the frameworks will help you. They'll put in all those items, all that governance around it, which will make sure, if you follow it, it's like any set of instructions, any standard operating procedure, any process in your business. There's a reason why all the steps are there. It's because they're good steps, and they do evolve. So maybe over time, some of the steps might come together. So that's part of the evolving both of the framework and your protection that is based on it.
Thanks so much, Jason. A question in there. And we'll take this as the last one. If people have questions there afterwards, please reach out to us directly and we'll deal with them for you on your behalf. What are the first steps an organization should take when implementing security framework when the IT security is best suited for cloud native environments?
I'll take that one just for a second.
Thanks, Gar.
Yeah, and whether it's cloud native or you're fully on-prem, when you're adopting a framework like NIST, and NIST is probably the only framework that we recommend adopting at the moment because it covers everything we need to be doing. But we always start at the beginning, which is our policies, and making sure that the organization has spent the time defining what good looks like for themselves. So putting the policies in place for information security, asset management, disaster recovery, incident response, and with a quick view of making sure we have the fundamentals in place. So we were not going to spend 3 months on policies but leave a gap. And what the way Reg and yourself always works is you'll come in first and do a gap analysis, and if there is a big piece that we need to do straight away before we look at those policies, we will start on and plug that hole first, and then get into the policies. But first and foremost, a gap analysis. Then the first step after that is into the policies. Most organizations have a good bit of NIST in place, but they don't realize they're actually following a NIST cybersecurity framework. So when we look at the detect and protect side, we will have a lot of that in place, but we mightn't have had the policies in place to say what the organization wants to do from a protection side or a detection side or a recovery side. So what we do like to do, gap analysis into the policies. If there's nothing in the gap analysis that says this is a very high risk, like not having a mutable backup, we would go to say to them, right, we want to work on all the policies, but these are 2 or 3 areas here we want you to look at first. So gap analysis into policies. Gap analysis will hopefully determine if there's any significant risk that needs to be done straight away. But then we start off the policies, which is the organization saying, this is what we want to do in terms of IT. This is how quick we want to recover. Asset management, this is where our most critical data is stored. And I think, Gary, our next piece is asset management. In terms of our next webinar is focusing just on asset management, which starts off on the policy side. But yeah, gap analysis into policies. And I don't know if Reg has anything to add to that. He would be one of the ones on our side.
No, very similar, Gary. So look, if we done an assessment, a gap analysis on the client, we might have 60 to 80 advisories or controls, but we would probably prioritize 6 to 8 high impact or prioritized things we like to do. And look, these all take investment and budgets that can't all be done within 12 months or 18 months. It might take some planning. So I've worked quite successfully with some companies recently, and it took us 2.5 years to improve their posture, but it was a fantastic journey for both parties. Great collaboration, great work, and great planning across that time. And we took them on a journey with us, and really good experience for both parties. But again, prioritizing it and making sure we're doing the more critical things first before we start digging into kind of just enhancing the processes or the controls or hardening them.
And guys, thanks so much for that. Reg, I want to thank you again and the entire team. And you're right, as Gary just mentioned there, listen, this is a huge area. We're not going to solve it all in one webinar, explain it all. But we will be focusing for the next few weeks on these webinars at each of the individual areas around, the DORA framework and the NIST framework. We do have customers on the webinar who have to adhere to DORA now. We have customers on the webinar who have to adhere to DORA in 2028. And so we are going to have a look at that on your behalf and see how it all links back to cybersecurity and Nostra Cloud Shield 365, so on and so forth. So the next webinar that we have is the 4th of June, and we will be looking at asset management. Reg mentioned earlier, if you don't know what assets you have, and we're not just talking about the traditional servers and laptops, so on and so forth, if you don't know what you have, it's very, very hard to manage that. So the next webinar is going to focus on that. In the meantime, if you have any questions here whatsoever, reach out to your Nostra account manager. If you don't have a Nostra account manager, reach out to myself. My email is gary.byrne@nostra.ie. And as I said earlier, we will be sending the recording and the slides out. So thank you one and all again for attending, and we'll see you all next time.
Thanks you. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you,
guys.
Bye-bye.